Okay, so this vehicle is a 2015 Nissan Micra. Customer towed it here with his tractor because it had quit on him. He said they were out, the vehicle started, ran for a few seconds and slowly faded away and then would not restart. When it got here, I checked to make sure that the check engine light was coming on with the key, and I listened for the fuel pump. And the fuel pump did not run with the key turning on. Now, I don't know if this is going to work now or not. I don't know if the video is going to pick that up, but the fuel pump actually ran now. But the vehicle starts and runs now as well. So I suspect the fuel pump is intermittent, but right now it's running. Let's see if we can hear the pump when I turn the key back on. Not that time, but I probably didn't have it off long enough. Usually requires about 5 seconds of off time before the fuel pump will rerun. It ran there. Well, we're going to lab scope the fuel pump and see what it looks like. So I decided before I get carried away we'd scan this thing to see if there's any codes in it. And it decoded the VIN, but there is no Micra here. I don't see a Micra. Frontier, Juke, Leaf, Murano. Fifth character of the VIN. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a K. Oh, let's imagine that they only sold these in Canada. Probably something silly like that because I don't even see it here. Interesting. So is that similar to a Versa? Definitely not a Sentra. What's the engine code? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A P? Let's try a Juke. Definitely not a Leaf. That would be hybrid. 1.6 code A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or a D. No, it's not that one. Let's try that. Maybe that's what I just picked. It's not a Frontier, not an Armada, not a Murano, not a cargo van, not a Quest, not a Rogue, Sentra, Versa, Note. Let's try this one. Well, let's see what happens. I'll have to Google what's this similar version of this vehicle sold in the US. That's the trouble with the snap-on scan tool. Sometimes it doesn't address the Canadian market vehicles. I got the key on, I've got the scan tool connected. Hopefully it's reading this vehicle. Let's try doing a code scan. Of course, whenever you ID the vehicle incorrectly, you have to be a little bit suspicious about any fault codes. Battery voltage code in the ABS. I pushed the vehicle in the shop. It's a standard. It rolled in the shop, then I turned the key on and I heard the fuel pump run, which I did not hear when the customer dropped it off. I also did not hear the fuel pump run during cranking. I had my ear at the filler neck while the customer was cranking it. But now the fuel pump runs and now mysteriously the vehicle runs. So I'm going to bring this up, start this recording again when it's finished this network scan. Well, the MaxiSys IDs it properly. And as I suspected, apparently the Micra was never sold in the US market. So we'll go into diagnosis here and see if this displays anything other than what the snap-on scanner displayed IDing it. I think I ID'd it as a Juke. There was one fault in the ABS for battery voltage. And this appears to be, I think it picked up 9 modules on the snap-on scanner. Let's take a look at Diagnostic Suite. So this found 8 modules, or maybe it was only 8. And basically the same faults were reported. So the next challenge is going to be finding wiring diagrams, considering there's probably no information on the battery voltage abnormal. It's a history code. So we're going to escape and erase. We'll erase that code. Okay. So I still have a funny suspicion that the fuel pump is going south occasionally. So we're going to see if we can find a fuel pump fuse or fuel pump relay so we can put an amp clamp over and have a look at the fuel pump waveform. Well, it looks like Identifix might actually have a wiring diagram for this thing. I looked at the fuse block under the hood and couldn't readily identify a fuse or a relay in there. And then I couldn't see how to quickly remove the back seat, because I'm pretty sure that's where you're going to gain access to the fuel pump. But my network is being very slow today, and it's not loading this diagram. So to access the fuel pump, it's under the back seat. The fuel pump access hole is under the back seat. This seat takes a considerable amount of force to pull up on these and release the clips. It took me a while to get brave enough to pull on it hard enough, and it finally released. I pried this glued down cover off of here, and I see the evidence of a mouse nest or something in here. I don't know if that's got anything to do with our issue. Eating wires maybe, but we'll have a look. At least the fuel pump is accessible here. And we'll have to identify the fuel pump feed wire and put an amp clamp over it and graph it. Well, I didn't see anything damaged with the mouse nest or whatever on top of the fuel tank, so trying to establish what wire is the fuel pump wire. They're all basically the same gauge there. It shows the fuel pump relay here in this schematic, 15 amp fuse. Obviously the fuse is good because it runs now. That goes to E, hopefully on the next page. I don't see E on here. Oh, here's E down here. So that goes straight up to O. Hopefully on the next page. No O there. There's O here. No wire colors. Pin location number 1 at the connector at the fuel pump, so we'll have to see which color the wire is in pin number 1. Maybe they'll use something logical like red. So it looks like there's 5 wires to this fuel pump for some reason. There's a pink one in the first location, so that could be the fuel pump. Then there's a red, a black, a white, and a green. Now typically a fuel pump would have 4 wires on it. You would have a power and ground for the pump and a signal and ground for the sender. What's the 5th wire for? Not sure. Anyways, we'll have a look and see if there's current on pin 1 or power on pin. So here's a picture of the fuel pump connector. Connector number B39 shows 5 terminals, and the terminal locations are 1, 3, 4, and 5. Terminal 1 is green. Terminal 5 is pink. But there's only 4 wires in this one. Number 2 is not used according to this, yet there's a wire in this harness, in this connector. So we'll see if we've got a voltage on terminal 1 while it's running now, which is the green wire. So it turns out pin 1, which is the green wire, is the power feed to the fuel pump, and pin 3, which is the black wire, is the ground for the fuel pump. So I used this power probe to load test both pin 1 while it was cranking and pin 3 all the time, and both of them passed the load test. I've got a couple of test leads directly hooked to the fuel pump right now, and this thing is trying to run the fuel pump. Oh, by the way, it stopped running again. I've tapped on the tank and the pump doesn't want to go, and there's no no continuity through the fuel pump. So It appears that the fuel pump has died in the tank, which is kind of strange for a 2015 vehicle with only 78,000 kilometers. But I guess it happens. So I'm going to reconfirm that this fuel pump circuit is good using a headlight which draws about 3.5 amps. That circuit should supply that, even though I've load tested it already. So that headlight's connected to pins 1 and 3. So when I turn the key on, the headlight should come on. And it did. And when cranking, it should come back on. And it does, yet the fuel pump does not run. So we're going to order up a fuel pump for this thing and replace it. So this is why you want to double check that your diagnosis is correct to the best of your ability. 2 fuel pumps listed for this vehicle depending on when the vehicle was built. So up to December 2014, retail price on a fuel pump assembly is $1,682. Wow. If it was after December 14, it's $635 list. I don't know what the difference is, but we're going to have to check the date the vehicle was manufactured. Well, according to the build date on the sticker on the door, it's 02 of 15. So it would be theoretically this one. This company shows no stock available anywhere. So I'm going to check with Napa and a couple other suppliers and check with the dealer. Maybe the dealer, you never know, might be cheaper. Well, Napa has no listing whatsoever for a fuel pump for this thing, and PartSource only lists the fuel pump prior to December 14, and my cost is $1,435, retails for $1,974. That's the same one that APC is trying to sell, but that's the wrong one. It needs a different pump apparently, and I don't know what's different. So I'm going to have to check with the dealer tomorrow morning.